Hello, I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and welcome to Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Today, we're talking about Iowa's marijuana program and the dangerous gaps that can hurt Iowans. In a rush to market, innocent Iowans and children are exposed to life-changing risks with often lifelong consequences. What can we do to protect Iowans? That's a question we're asking a couple of Iowa prevention specialists, Jennifer Hoosman and Maggie Ballard. Welcome to the show, and I thank you for helping us try to understand these risks, many of which few Iowans are aware of. Let's start with Maggie. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, Peter. Thanks for having me today. Obviously, my name is Maggie Ballard, and I've been working in prevention for about 8.5 years, substance use prevention. My background, my degree was in criminal justice. When I first came on, I really was of the idea that legalization of not just marijuana, but possibly other substances too. I believe that that would be good for social justice. I had this idea that it would free up our prison space and help address some of the racial disparities in sentencing. After I became tasked with it being my job to kind of understand what was happening with legalization and looking at things in Colorado and Alaska and Washington and places like that, I quickly learned that that is a complete misnomer, and that unfortunately it has quite the opposite effect on social justice and racial justice. So that's kind of what I bring to the table, is all of that background and lots and lots of research and years of looking into it.
Well, thank you very much. Now, Jennifer, tell us a little bit about your story.
Okay, well, I started in prevention for substance abuse specifically back in 2004 and was really working on the alcohol issue for the first several years that I was a prevention specialist. And I have a background in social work, but and so no one in my family had ever had ever used any illegal substances, marijuana, etc. And I had kids in high school and so really talking to them a lot. We did have some alcohol issues in our family. We have some mental health issues in our family. And so around that, about 2008, we started looking at the marijuana issues and started realizing kids were starting to think that that alcohol was more dangerous than marijuana. They were having less perception of harm of marijuana and started really studying that issue and realized that it is serious for what marijuana can do to teen brains. And at that very time, my own son happened to be heading off to college and really started using marijuana, started smoking pot basically a lot. And he ended up around his 20th birthday, basically having a psychotic breakdown and having a diagnosis of bipolar 1 with psychosis. And I had just around this time, 2010, started really learning about that connection of especially those young people with mental health in their family background, but really anyone we're finding out now with this high potency THC could end up with schizophrenia or psychosis or bipolar 1, and it's been a lifelong struggle now for him for several years. But anyway, that really got me interested in this issue more than ever.
Yeah, it's fascinating. In researching for the show, it became really obvious that the problem thing with marijuana is THC. That's the psychoactive drug that creates all the problems. And Iowa tried really hard to embark on what they called a CBD program, which was the safe side of the whole marijuana medicine thing. But it seems like the state got deceived, and we have taxpayer money going to this program that seems to be run by big industry that has learned how to influence changes in how the programs run to now basically be a distributor of high potency marijuana that they even advertise. That's easy to get. Just go to their website. I mean, this is insane. We have an Iowa program that was designed to help Iowans, that what we're hearing from prevention specialists is doing way more harm than good. how did this happen? Who wants to speak? Maggie, how about you? How do you think this happened to us?
Sure. Well, first, talking about high potency THC marijuana, that is really, I think, what you could attribute the change in my perspective, because if we were talking about the marijuana that grows out of the ground, the stuff that was around back in the 1960s and 70s, or your Woodstock weed, if you will, I don't think we would be having the controversy and the issues and the problems like what Jennifer's son had. But instead, we have this manufactured science experiment that has gotten so much stronger than anything that ever grew naturally in nature. And so Iowans have had this intention of getting what's natural that we believe has some medicinal properties, but instead it's exploded into something that gets people to keep using over and over again because THC is addictive.
We're going to take a short break. We'll come back. We'll continue our conversation with Maggie and Jennifer. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this.
The black truck? Hey, Christina from accounting.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, I used to date a girl named Christina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she dumped me for my best friend. You want to see some photos of them that I took?
I don't.
I thought we talked about this, buddy.
Buzzed and overshared again?
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm gonna call a car.
that's a smart idea.
So yeah, I know, that's why I did it.
Hey, you're gonna get back to the top of the mountain.
Does that mean I'm gonna get back with Christina?
No.
Oh.
No.
Every second, 127 new devices connect to the internet. You can feel it happening, our digital world expanding with every breath. We're entering a whole new era of connectivity, and MediaCom will be ready to power it with one of the nation's first 10G platforms. We'll be bringing you more speed, more capacity, more security, and the power to do more than you ever dreamed possible.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and we're here with Maggie and Jennifer talking about sort of evolving risks that need to be addressed to keep Iowa's cannabis dispensary program, in some form that's safe for Iowans. There's a lot of risky business going on, and not the least of which is what we're learning about the risk to the fetus when people are pregnant using marijuana. Marijuana dispensaries are even offering marijuana for people to deal with things like morning sickness, which is so wrong. It is terrible for pregnant women. Jennifer, can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, yes, that is something we're very concerned about is, the brains and development of babies and thinking of that, knowing that sometimes they're promoting also for reproductive pain, those kinds of things. Yesterday, I happened to hear a pediatric nurse practitioner who was saying, she has seen so many more babies who are born having been exposed to what she believes is the high potency THC. She said 5 years ago, this wasn't nearly as much of an issue, but in the last few years, it's just the kids are their symptoms basically are just sad and terrible, and so she's very concerned about this and what we can do to help mothers help parents know that they that you cannot be using marijuana while you're pregnant, and so we need to do something. Even with the medical cannabidiol system we have right now, to make sure there are warnings and as much as we can at the point of sale, or bigger warnings about not using during pregnancy.
Yeah, there's a fascinating thing is at a meeting, I also heard an assistant county attorney, saying that they have a maternal health committee and they're recommending that legislators require dispensaries to include a written warning on every CBD product sold that this product should not be used during pregnancy. And based on Iowa law, if you do that, it's called child abuse. There's a legal section 232 and a bunch of other numbers that people can look up, where it's if an illegal drug is present in the child's body as a direct or foreseeable consequence of the acts or omissions of the person responsible for the care of the child. And that includes a newborn infant who tests positive for an illegal drug like marijuana. And let's not, I mean, even if you're adult and you might get a marijuana prescription, it's not legal for infants and for kids. So you can't use this while you're pregnant legally. This is a serious issue. This is not being forced. This is not a public safety issue. And part of it is there's not a lot of perception of risk. You know, Maggie, we talk about the laws and what can be done to teach people that this is risky. And there's some question that public safety right now has to almost literally, you know, charge somebody with a serious misdemeanor. Are there things we can do to make it easier so that we can keep these drugs out of kids' hands and out of young pregnant women's hands, even secondhand smoke from vaping with marijuana, away from people that have children that could be at risk?
Peter, I have several things to say in response to that. First of which, talking about the serious misdemeanor, we've seen that most states, whether formally through statute or informally, have done some sort of decriminalization of marijuana possession. So that kind of goes hand in hand with what most people believe should happen. Most people, including law enforcement, don't believe that someone should sit in jail for smoking a joint. In Iowa, with having it be treated as a serious misdemeanor, a lot of times that gets thrown out by the judge because they say this isn't, the punishment wouldn't fit the crime. So it would be helpful to switch that down the way it's actually treated, which would be as a simple misdemeanor. So that there isn't as heavy of a punishment assigned to that crime.
But enough that if you got a ticket for a certain amount of money, it would affect your thinking about flaunting the use of these things as an underage user or as an adult using in front of children and things like that?
Yes, it would still be a heavy deterrent, and it still has that label of being illegal, so that with legalization, people think that this is this blanket free for all. And we've seen that in a lot of states where they try to say it's for adult use only. Okay. Kids, 18, 19, 20-year-olds don't hear that. They hear it's legal here, so it must not be bad for me. Whereas if you have still that label of illegal, but decriminalize, it serves as a deterrent, and people know it's not something that they should be doing. But then law enforcement doesn't have to put the resources into locking people up for it, which again, doesn't happen like ever.
Yeah, and the fact is we have stop signs and speed limits, and basically we probably need a sort of stop sign or speed limit for people that are abusing these drugs. And it can also form a way to path to intervention if they're having a problem. Now, we're going to take a short break. And I'd like to ask you both to share a little look at not only the history of marijuana in Iowa, but what you see it as in the future of our lives, you know, how you sort of visualize the future. See you all after the break. You don't want to miss this.
Multiple studies have shown that marijuana can slow both driver reaction and response time, which can be really dangerous. He's here. He's here. Wait. What? I can't drive. Why? My. Oh.
Every second, 127 new devices connect to the internet. You can feel it happening, our digital world expanding with every breath. We're entering a whole new era of connectivity, and MediaCom will be ready to power it with one of the nation's first 10G platforms. We'll be bringing you more speed, more capacity, more security, and the power to do more than you ever dreamed possible.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're talking with Jennifer and Maggie about improvements that we can make to Iowa's medical marijuana program that can prevent some of the most dangerous consequences, especially to children. Maggie, you have something to share about youth and how they're addressed in this business.
Absolutely. So, Peter, we see that youth are overwhelmingly targeted by this industry whenever they get the chance. As prevention specialists, we do what's called an environmental scan. So we go into places that sell tobacco, alcohol, CBD, places like that. And what we see is that the ads, the materials, it is overwhelmingly trying to target youth and teens and kids, lowering their perception of harm, making it look cool, making it look like something people their age do. Then you compare that with the medical CBD stores that are regulated by the Iowa Department of Public Health and their rules that they have set on places like, well, just really Bud and Mary's. And what we see there is that it looks more like a doctor's office. There is not all of that signage saying, look how cool this is, or look how good I feel. It's not really targeting teens and kids, not because they don't want to target teens and kids, but because Iowa has put in those rules as to how they can function. So the lesson here is that if the industry is not, if they do not have rules that they have to follow, they are going to push the envelope as much as they can and target youth and kids as much as they can.
You know, I have a question for you. You mentioned that when you walk into our dispensary program in Iowa, when you walk in, it looks more like a doctor's office, even though there's no real doctors there.
Absolutely.
But there's another thing is when this started, this company was called Med Farm, which really probably didn't make kids get real excited about it from their advertising. But let's face it, Bud and Mary's, Bud is another name for marijuana. Mary or Mary Jane is another name for marijuana. I mean, it's like saying, Fruit Loops for kids. You know, I don't go to my pharmacy and get like, Snoop Dogg's antibiotics, they're definitely out there promoting this whole Bud and Mary's thing. That's not targeting middle-aged or older people.
Yeah.
This is targeting youth. So there are lines drawn here that they can skip over and have the same kind of impact, isn't there?
Yes, and this is an industry that is not just here in Iowa. They are in many states. And when asked why they're changing the name from Med Farm, which does make you think medicine, or at least medicinal, when they're making that change to Bud and Mary's and we ask why, they say, well, because they're recreational in some states and they are for the people. So again, trying to put out that social justice message of if I want to get high, if I want to use, when really, if I want to become addicted, which is something most people don't want to do, then I deserve that right and I shouldn't have to be punished for it. That is the underlying message. And Iowans, I hope we don't fall for it. I hope our legislators do not fall for it.
That's
I think it's a sad testament when an Iowa taxpayer-supported program is luring youth to use of a dangerous drug. Jennifer, what do you have to add?
Well, and that's just it. I mean, we've seen now advertising on the radio during Iowa football games with, college age, and we're seeing that they do have the 85% THC vapes, which vapes are very much youth friendly. We saw originally they used a young model that supposedly was 25 to 30 years old, but she could have passed as a teenager, and she was had the vape cartridge. We see the easy presto doctor.com easy way you can get this for any condition, including not even non-physical pain but mental pain. And so there's just so much.
When we warn like pregnant women not to be around users to get secondhand smoke or using marijuana, we also know there's huge research that it's not good for PTSD. It's not good for people that have any history of mental health in their family, because there's a high rate of psychotic breaks and schizophrenia. Especially sometimes it troubles me to think that they're taking such advantage of our veterans by pushing this as a benefit when overwhelmingly the research shows it makes PTSD worse. Can Iowa make changes in its program to help protect these vulnerable populations?
We need to, because I mean, they are already in Canada now, that if their medical program, now they're making total changes, because there's only been like 4 conditions that actually have any research showing they work better than a placebo, and make things worse for many of the other conditions they had approved. So yeah, PTSD, they're not recommending that for that at all anymore.
Well, we're going to take a short break. We're going to ask Maggie and Jennifer to share some final comments, insights, and inspiration. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this.
Today, more than ever, you need fast, reliable internet. At MediaCom, we want you to know you can count on us. Our fiber-powered 100% gigabit technology network was built for the future. We have enormous capacity and power, and 99.99% network reliability. So even though these are uncertain times, we're prepared, and you can be certain we'll keep your world connected. Every second, 127 new devices connect to the internet. You can feel it happening, our digital world expanding with every breath. We're entering a whole new era of connectivity, and MediaCom will be ready to power it with one of the nation's first 10G platforms. We'll be bringing you more speed, more capacity, more security, and the power to do more than you ever dreamed possible.
Welcome back. Today on Surviving Bad, we're talking about Iowa's marijuana program and the dangerous gaps that can hurt Iowans. Most importantly, some ideas that can help make our future with marijuana safer. Let's see what insights, advice, and inspiration Jennifer and Maggie have to share. To get the ball rolling here, we have doctors on a cannabidiol advisory board, but some of these, when they send recommendations, then the legislature sometimes listens more to the marijuana industry, which is, of course, interested in profits and getting more people addicted to the products they're trying to sell. But the marijuana board are really good doctors, and they can do some of these things to make changes. So our future with marijuana in Iowa is good. What is the world like in Iowa when it comes to marijuana, and what do you see for the future?
So Peter, I think that what we see happening, like you said, we have these medical CBD board doctors who are talking about what they're trying to follow the science. Okay, then we have the physicians, the presto doctor type ones who are just certifying people's conditions. And they're not too worried about following the science. What they're concerned with is giving patients what they want. And that's a problem, because as a patient, you could point to a number of different things that can help with these certain conditions people look to medical CBD for. The argument could be made that smoking a cigarette or drinking a beer is helpful for my anxiety, because after I smoke or after I have that drink, I feel some relief. But of course, the science does not show that either of those things are actually recommended for helping with anxiety. But that's what we have this industry trying to say, is that if you feel something, take this.
Now, if I get this right, if I go to a regular doctor, they do their job, insurance, or I pay the bill, and that's fine. But presto doctors, they only get paid if they get people a prescription for marijuana. So it's in their best interest to help, because if they advertise that we will help you get this, and there's no charge if you can't, when they fully well know they can get most people done through these quote unquote presto doctors whose sole job is to find a way to negotiate the paperwork to get them what the customer, what they want.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that complicated about needing to certify in order to get paid. I think it's pretty much just an advertisement of, if you're having a problem getting your true physician to certify that you have this condition, here's a doctor who will certify that you have that condition. Because again, this is not a prescription. Right? I heard you say that earlier, and I wanted to jump on you. It's not a prescription. It is a certification that someone has this condition. So they don't even have to say, well, what is going to happen with it. All they have to do is say, yes, you have PTSD, or yes, you have intractable pain. I don't have to worry about what you do or how you treat it. All I'm saying is this is what you're dealing with.
And they get paid per visit. It isn't whether so that probably, also many of the doctors, and I don't know the numbers or anything, but they do not have to be Iowa doctors. They just have to be certified doctors. So they could be a Colorado doctor that's got an Iowa certification, to do the telehealth or for Presto or the other one. But I
They
just
can
want to make,
doctor shop until they find one that gives them what they want. There's
yeah,
no limit.
and I want to make a point that Maggie said there about, the anxiety and mental. I mean, the thing is, we know that the marijuana affects, like I said, the mental health and even the suicide. Now, I mean, there's getting a very strong connection for young people who are using high potency THC and have a cannabis use disorder and suicide. It's actually maybe more moving up someone at risk even more than they did if they had an alcohol use disorder for suicide. So this is something really serious when we are trying to reduce our suicide numbers and help our Iowa youth with mental health. And the thing is, we don't need to jump through hoops for this industry when we have a low number of adults and youth in Iowa right now who use marijuana at all. And we are one of the lowest in the nation. And we don't want to see that change. We want to be the lowest in the nation. We want people to enjoy life and all the great things there are, without being high. We also at the same time, do want to help people, if they're a terminal illness or something like that, and they're right to try these, medications. That's totally what, most everyone wants, but that's just my thought is.
No, those are great points. And I looked at a toxicology report on teen suicides in Colorado, which is why they're changing access and their laws so much. It's much more prevalent in 12 to 17-year-olds in Colorado because it's the drug of choice, more than alcohol by double. And it's double the rate of toxicology and was found in the bloodstream of teens that have committed suicide. So we know there are some dangerous consequences. I am so thankful that you guys are working on behalf of our youth and trying to work with Iowa leadership to carve out these great safeguards for our kids and our families. Thank you all for watching us today. Check out our website at healthyiowa.org and keep your eye on MediaCom MC22 for our next episode of Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration on MediaCom MC22, your local programming leader.